Welcome to Newsfeed. I'm Tom Mustin. Today we're looking at new technology involving office key cards and how your vaccination status could be what gets you inside the building again. Plus this.
The further away people are from the border, the bigger the myth is of the border.
Today we take you to a shelter on the Mexico side of the border to see what conditions are like compared to what we're seeing here in the United States.
But first, more good news on the vaccine front. The hardest hit and highest risk communities for COVID-19 are getting more money to expand access to vaccines. The funds are coming in large part from the American Rescue Plan. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is giving $6 billion to community health centers nationwide. It'll be split among 1,400 centers starting in April. An additional $332 million is going to community health workers to support COVID-19 control and additional training. $3 billion will be split among states and cities to support local efforts to increase vaccine confidence and equity. And part of those efforts and money will reach people at a much higher risk of dying from COVID. Vaccinations are coming to dialysis centers where patients typically have appointments several times a week.
About 40% of those people actually have diabetes as well, which increases their risk on top of the kidney disease.
People with kidney diseases are considered high risk and in a higher tier of vaccine eligibility. But everyone knows that being eligible and actually getting registered and securing an appointment for a shot are very different issues. Delivering directly to dialysis centers is a great option for medical and equity reasons. And kidney disease disproportionately affects racial and ethnic minorities. 34% of patients on dialysis are Black. Another 19% are Hispanic. The shots will be available for staff at dialysis centers as well. The chief medical officer of the American Diabetes Association has been fully vaccinated, and he encourages staff and patients to do the same.
I was excited. It was great. Any side effects are minimal compared to contracting COVID and the more than 500,000 deaths that it has caused in our country alone.
There are about 500,000 people in the U.S. currently receiving regular dialysis treatment. 2 more emergency intake sites are opening to accommodate children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border alone. The Department of Health and Human Services is partnering with the Defense Department to temporarily use property at Fort Bliss near El Paso, Texas, and also Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. The properties will provide more than 5,000 beds combined. And as U.S. leaders grapple with the immigration crisis, there are many migrants waiting just short of the U.S. border, watching for what policy may come next. Chris Stewart went to a shelter across the border from Arizona to see how their situation compares to what we're seeing in the U.S.
Every night, this is what you'll find inside the San Juan Bosco migrant shelter. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of people who have found refuge just short of the U.S. border. For most here,
Guatemala,
it's a journey. Sometimes on foot,
Honduras.
fueled by hopes of one day making it to the other side of this wall.
This is from last night. Most people are from Guatemala.
Most migrants here tonight have already tried to cross into the U.S. Some seeking asylum, others may have tried illegally.
Those who have crossed. This is the people that have been under the status of catch and release. They are caught right the minute they cross, and then they are put back, and they usually come here to sleep.
Alma Cota de Yanez works for an organization that supports this family-run shelter that's been open every day since 1982, founded by Paco Lareo's father. And while the mayor of neighboring Nogales, Arizona, says his city is not seeing a migrant crisis for now, Paco tells us he's seen an increase in migrants coming to his shelter since President Biden has taken office.
Sí, han incrementado.
Even though the new administration has said the border is closed.
As the new administration started, there was this call that people felt, okay, this is a new administration, let's go right now.
Violence and poverty are driving forces for many to leave home and try to make it to the United States. We spoke to this man. He says he and his brother left Guatemala in hopes of finding better work. They say their jobs there paid the equivalent to around $6 US a day. The shelter tells us these young faces are with their parents, unlike the recent spike in unaccompanied minors along other parts of the border.
How restricted it is to cross.
Alex LaPierre is with Arizona-based Border Community Alliance. The group works to bridge the divide between Mexico and the U.S. He says for many migrants, there is uncertainty, as many on both sides wonder how leaders will handle immigration issues next.
People think that now with the new administration, things have just flipped a switch and changed overnight, but it's not the case.
Finding the right approach to solving immigration may feel impossible. Alex would like you, no matter your opinion, to start with what you see, who you see, in places like this.
Have empathy for these people that really have nothing, and this is really their last resort is coming here and making this journey. It's not something that there's just a flip of the coin, but it was something that they had no other choice.
In Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, I'm Chris Stewart reporting.
With opening statements starting next week, we're looking at the impact that high-profile murder trials like Derek Chauvin's can have on cities. We're taking you to one place seeing big changes. Newsfeed, we'll be right back. Over the last 15 years, only a handful of police officers have been tried and convicted of murder for causing a death while they were on duty. As the murder trial of Derek Chauvin is set to start next week, Usher Qureshi takes a look at how another high-profile case impacted a city, its leadership, and reform efforts.
It took a year of public pressure and a court order for city officials to release the dashcam video of Officer Jason Van Dyke's fatal shooting of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald in Chicago.
We had our George Floyd moment in Chicago back in 2014 with the killing of Laquan McDonald, and then in 2015 when it all blew open.
Investigative journalist Jamie Calvin is credited with breaking the story. It led to the first ever murder trial of a Chicago police officer in the city's history.
It's hard to overstate the symbolic importance of that occasion, that he was charged, that the trial went forward, and ultimately that he was convicted of second-degree murder.
The fallout included the firing of the city's top cop, a failed re-election bid for the state's attorney. On the eve of jury selection for the Van Dyke trial, a stunning political reversal.
This has been the job of a lifetime, but it is not a job for a lifetime.
Millions already raised for his re-election campaign, embattled Mayor Rahm Emanuel announced he would not seek a third term.
The political impact was extraordinary. It was an earthquake in Chicago politics.
Former federal prosecutor and University of Chicago law professor Sharon Fairley says transparency did improve. But a Department of Justice consent decree with court monitoring of reforms and new systems of accountability, she says, have had spotty results.
That's like turning a battleship. Those changes don't happen overnight. The first few years, to be honest with you, have been kind of rough, right? The city has been bound to not really be following the timelines that it's supposed to be held to.
Still, years later, Fairley says the push for police accountability in the wake of the killing of George Floyd has amplified the calls for justice.
People are having conversations about police reform to a level of depth that they've never had before.
And though not discounting the symbolic importance of the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis, Calvin says justice in Minneapolis or in any other city will not come from a singular murder conviction.
It is not in itself the kind of system of accountability that would actually change the day-to-day realities of abusive, unconstitutional policing.
And he says there must be a reasonable expectation of what results a trial like this can actually produce, a lesson learned in Chicago.
What's paradoxical is it didn't change anything in terms of reform. I would venture to say it didn't make it any less likely that another African-American teenager would be shot and killed under similar circumstances.
Reporting from Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Your key card for work could soon be connected to your vaccination status. Next on Newsfeed, how this is already becoming a reality to get people back into offices. As more businesses talk about getting workers back to the office, your vaccination status could play a role. Hundreds of CEOs are polled around the world. 91% say their companies will be asking their workers to let them know when they've gotten their shot. That's according to a new survey from global tax firm KPMG. Your vaccination status may even be what gets you inside your office building with that key card. Castle Systems is a major provider nationwide of the employee access systems for buildings. They're now allowing businesses to add that information to their key cards.
We know that there's huge demand for people to get back and be together physically with their colleagues. And so this is a fantastic tool to enable people to do it, but to do it only when they feel safe that the people around them have also been vaccinated.
Starting off, it will be up to employees to share their vaccination status. Employers can decide if they want to take this a step further and have people submit a picture of their vaccination card.
I think while there will be some people who may have some concerns, and we're starting with self-attestation, so you volunteer it yourself, I think you're going to see that this is adopted in a very widespread way because it really is what's going to enable us to get back to the office like we used to.
Now, as far as security goes, Castle says it doesn't store any employee information in their system. The company says it's up to your employer to keep that data secure. Opening statements begin Monday in the trial of Derek Chauvin, a former police officer charged with murder in the death of George Floyd. This comes nearly 30 years after a watershed moment in Los Angeles. A jury acquitted police officers videotaped beating a man. Activists who were there tell Amanda Brandeis they worry that history will repeat itself.
For years, there have been complaints, mostly from minority communities, about alleged police brutality. The dramatic videotape of the Rodney King beating has intensified that outcry. An unarmed black man clubbed and stomped by white police officers.
A video captured by chance, evoking outrage and a sense of relief.
It was affirming what we knew. This was the first time that we could say, I told you.
Felt like now there is accountability. There is a video.
A moment that forever changed a city.
All 4 officers are accused of 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon.
It was the first time the brutality like that was caught on camera.
Yet in some eyes changed nothing at all.
We, the jury, and the
all the officers were acquitted. That's when the uprising occurred.
We're at Florence and Vermont. Fires on every side.
There was gatherings all throughout LA, and people couldn't believe it. Because we want to believe in our justice system. We want to believe that it'll work.
Greg Achille has spent the last 50 years organizing for social justice.
What we see in 92 and what we see in 2021 is the same. The outrage, the disgust, the anger. What you saw in the eyes of that officer who's on trial now is an unwillingness to accept the humanity of George Floyd. They didn't see Rodney King as human.
Demands for change in 92 echo those today.
We pay a heavy price with our deaths to wake up the rest of America.
While hopeful for a different outcome today, he's not expecting one.
If the police officers who beat Rodney King were let off, then that can certainly happen again in Minnesota.
I would certainly be disappointed, but I would not be surprised.
But unlike 1992, those demanding change are more organized.
Those demands around justice, inclusion, and reparations are now being pushed forward.
With Black Lives Matter galvanizing people of all races across generations.
More and more people are recognizing that there are some things that need to be reformed.
What the Floyd murder did for the rest of America, particularly white America, was tap into the outrage and disgust that we have.
I think there will be change, but it's a long ways. I don't know if I'll see it.
This is more than a moment.
In Los Angeles,
this is a movement.
I'm Amanda Brandeis.
It's been said that sometimes the mind can play tricks on you. Well, scientists may have just discovered one of the most important processes when it comes to how we hold on to memories. It has to do with proteins in the brain. As some people age, some proteins clump together and form plaque. This has long been associated with memory loss and has been the focus of Alzheimer's and dementia research. Now scientists at the Stowers Institute for Medical Research have learned the joining together of some of these proteins is actually responsible for holding on to memories for a lifetime.
When they clump, they become very stable. And not only that, over time, if some parts of the clump sort of fall off or disappear, they have the ability to recruit a new one to keep it going.
Dr. Kosiksi and colleagues learned this by studying fruit flies. The insects form memories about things like where to find food and how to avoid danger. The next step is to study human brains and learn why protein clumping in some cases causes disease and in other cases creates stable memories. That development could change the approach to search for a cure for dementia and other diseases of the brain.
The good thing about the science is that whatever idea you have, you just follow it. And so that's exactly what we did. And in the end, it was actually more satisfying and more mind-blowing than I initially anticipated.
The findings will be published in medical journals for those involved in memory loss diseases and research to consider. The world has seen record-breaking natural disasters over the past few years. And as of this week, NOAA has added some new tools that can help predict those events sooner and more accurately. It could mean more time for evacuations as well as saving lives and property. The upgraded global forecast system comes as southern states were hit with severe weather last week and are expecting more. One of the new features helps with predictions by measuring changes in the upper atmosphere. Outside of big storms, this change is also expected to improve weather apps.
90% of what you see on your weather apps or any weather forecast offices are coming from NOAA, right? The NOAA provides all the operational guidance. And the GFS, the Global Forecast System, is the mother of all models. It feeds all the regional systems.
GFS also got an upgrade to its wave forecasting. Oceans are a primary energy source for many storms, and changes can now be predicted 16 days in advance instead of 10. Those 6 days can also mean a lot when it comes to overseas shipments.
Ocean waves are important for shipping industry, for our Coast Guard, and so they're getting much more advanced forecasts combined with atmospheric forecasts.
New weather predicting supercomputers will also be installed in Arizona and Virginia. Still ahead on Newsfeed.
I saw it come up and I was like, oh, summer camp, yes, you're going, like, click, 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 send.
You heard that, Mom. It's not just kids excited about summer camp this year, how camps are changing and how fast you need to act to get signed up. Going to summer camp is a rite of passage for many kids. Last year, COVID forced a lot of camps to close. But as Maya Rodriguez tells us, this year is shaping up to be different.
For 13-year-old Piper Warner, home is with her family. And then there's summer camp.
It's almost like your second home.
That second home is here at Apple Farm Arts Camp, a charter school that turns into an overnight stay arts camp in the summer. But last summer, during what would have been the camp's 60th year, COVID restrictions made it impossible to open. Piper's mom, Nicole Warner.
I mean, it was hard because, like, summer camp is part of who she is.
I was pretty disappointed.
But this year,
so we just got a green light.
Corey Solomon is the executive director of the camp in southern New Jersey. She says while the governor gave summer camps the go-ahead, Apple Farms will only be operating at 50% capacity.
We've had a planning committee happening since last summer to figure out what do we need to do to ensure children could safely come here for our overnight camp experience.
According to the American Camp Association, across the country, only a handful of states so far are not allowing overnight summer camps this year. But in several other states, it's more complex and left up to each individual county to decide. Where summer camps are happening,
our phone is ringing off the hook.
Demand appears strong, not just from kids.
I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is great. I'm like so excited for this.
But especially their parents.
I saw it come up and I was like, oh, summer camp, yes, you're going, like, click, 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 send.
And for the Warner family, a chance to return to something familiar.
My husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer last year, so on top of him being sick, she just lost this, and this was what she looked forward to. He's healthy again, he's great. But now knowing that she has this place to turn to this summer and reconnect with all the things she lost is really going to be amazing.
A summer experience that's waiting just around the corner. In Elmer, New Jersey, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Great to see you. Thank you, Maya. That does it for us today. I'm Tom Mustin. This is Newsfeed.
From the Seven Hills to the bluegrass, the riverbanks to the suburbs, this is home, where big dreams are born. A place to be creative, sing, and celebrate what unites us. Where we work hard to support our families, lend a helping hand to our neighbors in their time of need, celebrating the traditions and events that bring us together, learning from the past to build a better future, where everyone is welcome. And our roots run as deep as the love we have for this place. Because this is our home too. Owned by the same Cincinnati company for more than